The more intelligent you are, the more sophisticated your hiding habits probably are. And this is definitely a pattern worth understanding. Welcome to your daily hit of grace and grit, your quick dose of inspiration to kickstart your day. I'm Courtney Townley, and here is today's hit. If you've read my book, The Consistency Code, you've heard me talk about hiding habits. Hiding habits are anything that you do to avoid the real work that your life is calling you into. So instead of maybe learning how to exercise because it's uncomfortable, you always busy yourself with work, right? Instead of focusing on your own problems, you tend to focus on other people's problems. Instead of actually applying information, you just consume information. Like we could do a 5-hour podcast just on hiding habits. And I have done podcasts on this very topic before that are much lengthier than this one. So you can always go back and search for those episodes. But for today's episode, I really want to drive home this point that there is a psychological phenomenon called behavioral substitution, which is the tendency when faced with an anxiety-provoking task, to replace it with a related but lower stakes activity that generates a feeling of productivity without the actual risk. So it is literally defining a hiding habit, right? Behavioral substitution is when we avoid the work we actually want to be doing to do something that isn't as uncomfortable and doesn't create much risk. That's exactly what a hiding habit is. So think of it this way. It could be, some examples would be like a student afraid to start writing an essay spends hours reorganizing her notes. Or a woman who needs to have a difficult conversation with her doctor spends 2 hours researching the topic online instead. Or maybe a client who knows she needs to address chronic stress that might be coming from her marriage, but she goes out and buys a new supplement stack instead. The behaviors that they're substituting, they feel productive. They can argue that they're productive. Like we can make a really strong case for why these hiding habits are important. It generates a genuine sense of doing something. But it is fundamentally avoidance wearing a costume of action. So research on this pattern shows something important. The higher someone's executive function, their capacity for complex thinking and planning, the more sophisticated and convincing their avoidance behaviors or hiding habits tend to be. So high-achieving, intelligent women are often the most skilled avoiders in the room. Does this sound familiar? They can construct an airtight case for why the information that they are consuming is exactly what they need before they can start. So I'm hoping that this rings true for you on some level because we all do it. I've never in my lifetime met a human who did not have one or a dozen or more hiding habits. We all have them. And I'm not having this conversation to be unkind. I'm saying it because I have them too. I have lots of them. But the moment that you see the intelligence of your own avoidance clearly, you've taken your power back. You cannot outsmart a pattern that you cannot name and see. Right? So we're naming it and noticing it, which is something I talk a lot about in my book, The Consistency Code. The power of naming and noticing how we actually show up, what our behaviors are, what our avoidance tendencies are, what our buffering behaviors are. You already know enough to start. You already know enough to make progress. I always argue that the gap is rarely, if ever, information. It's a willingness gap. And the work of closing that gap begins with radical honesty about how you have been substituting for the actual work you want to be doing. And you're really the only person who knows how you're doing that. So, an invitation for more radical honesty so you can reveal to yourself your own hiding habits. If this stirred something inside of you, imagine what a whole book of clarity and courage could ignite. The Consistency Code, a midlife woman's guide to deep health and happiness, goes even deeper into the mindset and practices that create real, meaningful change at midlife. Grab your copy today over at theconsistencycode.com and keep the momentum alive.